Hi, it's Rin, your friend who talks way too much about Baldur's Gate. And today I have a question for you. So you know point and click dialogue, right? The dialogue that the characters will have if you select them for any reason, if you make them click on something or interact with something or someone. The lines that play when it comes up to be their turn during turn-based combat, and all the stuff like that. A lot of the characters have very specific dialogue to their characters, so like Astarion making a joke about drinking blood or hurting people. Gale always quoting Shakespeare or some shit, Lae'zel and Shadowheart calling out to their goddess mommies, etc. So anyway, Wyll, right? We know him, we love him. Actually, I don't love him. I think he's really boring and You've already been blocked, I don't read your comments. Anyway, Wyll, like all of the characters, has this dialogue, and if you're like me, you may have occasionally noticed that something about it sounds a little off.
A hero at heart. The pride of the gate. Sharp as ever. A hero at heart.
By that I mean it sounds different than how he normally sounds. It doesn't really sound like Theo Solomon, the actor who portrays Wyll. Well, what if I told you that's because it isn't? It's not Theo. What if I told you that most, if not all, of the point and click dialogue and the selected character dialogue is not in fact Theo Solomon? It is the voice of Lanre Malaolu. I hope I said that right. If I didn't, please correct me. I believe the name is Nigerian in origin. I made a good faith effort to pronounce it correctly, but again, correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, Lanre, if you don't know, was the actor who originally portrayed Wyll before the character underwent a lot of changes and they ended up changing actors. And all of the Wyll banter that I just played you was Lanre's voice, not Theo's. Here's what Theo sounds like.
Checking things out.
Blade at the ready.
Where am I needed? On the victor's path.
I play that not only to illustrate the difference, but also to assuage you of the notion that perhaps this was just, a timing-based oversight. Like you said, Wyll was changed a lot late in the game. Theo recorded a lot of his lines later in the game. Maybe they just ran out of time to record this dialogue, and so they just went with the old stuff for convenience sake. But no, Theo recorded the lines, 840 in total. He put in the work, just like every other actor, to record and act out those lines and scenes. But for many of you, you have never heard the work he put into those lines because Larian, in 8 patches and I believe 36 hotfixes, never bothered to put them in the game. If you are on PC, there is a mod available that restores these lines, and I highly recommend it because I downloaded it not too long ago, and it's a real mindfuck. Hearing things that you've always heard Wyll say, but in a completely different inflection than you always have heard him say it, and realize that all of the times previously that you heard him say it, it was not Theo Solomon. Theo and Lamray's performances are completely different, and that's not a knock to either actor. They both played the character the way that it made sense to play it as it was written for them. Lanray's voice is deeper, it's gruffer, it's a bit more posh than Theo's, and his performance as Wyll reflects the darker, gruffer edge that Wyll used to have. Now, the Wyll we currently have is a lot more buoyant, youthful, joyful, optimistic, friendly, and the way Theo delivers those lines reflects that. Again, this is not at all to shade Lanray's work, but for whatever reason, at the end of the day, he was not part of the final process of the character of Wyll. All of his lines were replaced by Theo's, except for these. Perhaps it's because they assumed we wouldn't notice, but people did notice. People have said stuff, even in early forum posts on Larian's website. Some initially tried to chalk it up to, different recording environments or different creative choices, but no, someone went in there and found out that it straight up just is not his voice. The 840 lines Theo Solomon recorded were not properly replaced, even though they absolutely could have been, because again, somebody made a mod to do so. And while I'm grateful for the mod, I don't think that we should have to have a mod to hear the actor who was hired to perform a character perform that character. Now, I want to reiterate, this just applies to the point and click and select character dialogue. It does not apply to the banter you hear when he's walking around talking to the other characters. It does not apply to the talking that he does in cutscenes. All of that is still Theo. But the point and click and character select is not, and once you hear it, you kind of can't unhear it. And you might not even think it's a big deal, but 840 lines is not nothing. That's work. That's work that the actor put in, and I think that they deserve to have that work heard by players, because unless you get a mod that you probably didn't even know you needed and probably isn't even available to you on console, you'll never know, you'll never hear Theo's performance of these lines. And that strikes me as unfair, a bit unprofessional, and frankly, disrespectful. It speaks to a broader issue of how underserved Wyll is as a character, how much of an afterthought he is treated by the devs of the game, and by extension, how his actor is treated. And I'm just speculating, and you might think I'm just putting on the too woke hat, But I think that if Astarion had a different actor in early access and then was replaced by Neil Newbon later in the process, and Neil took the time to record all of his lines, and they replaced Astarion's lines with Neil's recordings, that they would not leave a significant section of his dialogue, all of his point and click dialogue, all of his character select dialogue, as the old actor and figure no one will care. I obviously don't know. This is a hypothetical because that's not what happened, but I do think that if that is what happened, that they would have fixed it by now. That's my opinion. And I'll leave you to speculate why these two men might have been treated differently. But yeah, anyway, there's your fun fact for the day. Again, while it shouldn't have to exist, the mod is available if you're on PC, and I do highly recommend it because it's just really fun to hear the lines as they were supposed to be heard and to hear Theo's performance of them. The lines really do feel like they fit Will's personality better now. I think the work that all of these actors did and put into these characters is important and deserves to be recognized in its fullest capacity. So if you're able to get that mod, I would recommend it. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to support me, you're always welcome to leave a tip here, as what I'm doing right now is my current job. Thank you so much again for watching, and I'll see you next time.